Elderly black maid humiliated at the bank. Luckily, the Mafia boss was there. Hello, everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, back to our main character. Margaret Hayes, a 72-year-old woman, stood in line at First National Bank, clutching her worn purse to her chest. Despite the aching in her hands from arthritis, she stood tall, her silver hair neatly pulled back into a bun. This wasn't her first time here, but today felt different. The bank was full of busy professionals, all dressed in their polished suits and expensive watches. They walked past her without a second glance, making her feel invisible, as though she didn't belong in their world. But she didn't mind. She had a job to do, and she wasn't going to let anything shake her determination. For 6 long months, she had worked extra hours, scrimped, and saved every penny to get enough to pay off her overdue property taxes. This little house was all she had left of her late husband, and she was going to hold on to it no matter what. But as she approached the counter, the mood shifted. The young teller, Brandon Mitchell, looked at her with a smirk as he took the envelope from her. His eyes flicked to the money inside, then back to her with a look of distaste. "Cash," he said slowly, almost with a sneer. "Do you realize how much paperwork cash deposits require?" Margaret's heart sank. She had done everything right, counted the bills, brought the envelope, and had been a loyal customer of this bank for over 30 years. But now, this young man was treating her like she was a criminal. "I'm sorry," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't know." From the people behind her were like daggers in her back. What's wrong with her? She probably doesn't even know how to handle money. Margaret's face flushed with humiliation. She could feel the weight of their judgment. She tried to hold it together, but the tears welled up in her eyes. She had worked her entire life to keep her dignity intact, but now she felt it slipping away. That's when she heard a voice behind her. "Did I just hear you correctly?" It was a voice that cut through the murmurs of the bank like a blade through silk. She turned to see a tall, broad-shouldered man walking toward the counter. His presence was commanding, and he moved with the quiet authority of someone who knew the world was his to command. His sharp jawline and dark eyes made him seem almost otherworldly, and the luxury of his tailored suit only emphasized the power he exuded. Margaret didn't know who he was, but when he stepped forward, the atmosphere in the room shifted. He was someone important. "You're humiliating her for bringing in cash?" he asked, his voice calm, but with an undercurrent of danger. Brandon froze, his face going pale. He stammered, "I was just following procedure." The man's cold gaze never left Brandon. "I don't care about your procedures. You will process this deposit immediately." The tension in the air was palpable as Brandon quickly scrambled to process the transaction, his hands shaking. The other customers stood in stunned silence. Margaret could hardly believe what was happening. The man turned to her, his expression softening. "Are you all right, ma'am?" he asked, his voice gentler now. Margaret nodded, too overwhelmed to speak. She didn't know what to say. This man, who had the power to make everyone in the room tremble, had just stood up for her. She could feel the weight of his gaze, but it wasn't judgment, it was respect. In that moment, she realized that sometimes, even in a world that seemed determined to break you, there was still kindness. And that kindness could come from the most unexpected places. As Margaret slowly walked out of the bank, she felt a strange mixture of relief and disbelief. The events that had just unfolded seemed almost surreal, like something out of a movie. She clutched her purse a little tighter, trying to steady her hands, which still trembled from the humiliation and the unexpected kindness she had just experienced. Her mind replayed the moment when the tall man, the Mafia boss, had stepped in to defend her. She didn't know who he was, but there was something about him, something that radiated power and control, yet he had treated her with respect. She felt a glimmer of hope that maybe not all the world was as cruel as it seemed. As she made her way down the sidewalk, Margaret couldn't help but think about her life. At 72, she had seen and endured much. She had worked tirelessly as a maid for most of her life, scrubbing floors, washing dishes, and cleaning homes for families that often took her for granted. Yet, it was this small house, the last piece of her late husband's legacy, that she clung to the most. She had worked for everything she had, scraping by on minimum wage, always putting others before herself. But today, as she walked through the streets of her neighborhood, something inside her had shifted. The world had just shown her a different side, one where there was still room for kindness, even in the most unlikely of places. Her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of a car pulling up beside her. She looked over, startled to see the Mafia boss again. He was in the passenger seat of a sleek black car, the driver's window rolled down. "Miss Hayes," he called out, his deep voice carrying over the street noise. Margaret stopped in her tracks, surprised he even knew her name. "Yes?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "I wanted to make sure you're all right," he said, his eyes softening as they met hers. "I didn't mean to embarrass you back there, but I couldn't just stand by and watch that happen." Margaret felt a lump form in her throat as she stared at him, not quite sure how to respond. She had never been treated this way before, like she mattered. "Thank you," she said quietly, the words barely escaping her lips. "You're welcome," he replied, nodding. He paused for a moment, as if considering something, before speaking again. "Listen, I've been thinking. You've been through a lot, and I respect the way you handle things. If you ever need a job, something more than just cleaning houses, I can help you. You deserve better than what this world has given you." Margaret's heart skipped a beat. A job? With someone like him? She hadn't expected that. But before she could respond, the car's engine revved, and the driver gave a slight nod, signaling that it was time to leave. The Mafia boss gave her one last look, a mix of respect and something else that she couldn't quite place, before the car slowly pulled away. Margaret stood frozen for a moment, the words echoing in her mind. A job, a chance at something more. She had always known that her life could be different, but she had never imagined something like this. She watched as the car disappeared around the corner, her mind racing with possibilities. She could never have imagined this moment, the feeling of being seen, of being valued, of knowing that someone cared. As she continued walking home, her thoughts were filled with a new sense of hope. The future, for the first time in years, felt a little brighter. "I can't believe I'm standing here right now," Margaret thought to herself as she walked through the front door of the bank the next day. It felt like a dream, something that she never thought would come true, but here she was. She had received the call from the Mafia boss, William Castellano, asking her to meet him. She had tried to play it cool, tried to act like it was no big deal, but now that she was here, standing on the steps of his office building, she could hardly contain her excitement. Margaret had never been in a place like this before. The building was towering, its sleek glass windows reflecting the bright blue sky. Inside, the floors were polished marble, and the air smelled of expensive cologne and coffee. She felt out of place, but there was a quiet confidence in the way she walked, a new sense of purpose that had taken root inside her. She couldn't help but think back to the day before, the way William had stepped in and defended her, the way he had seen her as more than just the maid, more than just the woman who cleaned houses for a living. He had made her feel like she mattered. She had never felt that before. As she walked through the building, her shoes clicking on the marble floor, she couldn't help but feel the eyes of the people around her. They were watching her, probably wondering what a woman like her was doing here. But Margaret didn't care. She was here for a reason, and she wasn't going to let anything or anyone make her doubt that. When she reached the elevator, she took a deep breath and stepped inside, her heart racing. She had no idea what was going to happen next, but she knew this was her chance. This was her moment. The elevator doors slid shut, and she was taken up to the top floor, where William's office was. When the doors opened, she was greeted by a tall man with a well-tailored suit, a confident smile, and a handshake that made her feel like she was in the presence of someone who could change her life. "Miss Hayes," he said, his voice warm but firm. "It's good to see you again." Margaret smiled, a little nervously. "Thank you for meeting with me," she replied. "Of course," he said, motioning for her to follow him into the office. "Please, come in." The office was just as impressive as the building itself. The walls were lined with bookshelves, and there was a large desk in the center, behind which William sat. He gestured for her to sit in one of the chairs across from him. Margaret sat down, her hands nervously resting on her lap. "I've been thinking about what you said yesterday," William began, his eyes meeting hers with a seriousness that made her heart skip a beat. "You've been through a lot, Miss Hayes. I admire your strength, your determination. And that's why I want to offer you something more than just a job. I want to give you an opportunity to change your life. Margaret's breath caught in her throat. What do you mean? She asked, her voice shaking slightly. William leaned forward, his expression thoughtful. I see something in you, something that goes beyond the surface. You're not just a maid. You're someone who has been overlooked for far too long. And I think you have the potential to do something great. Margaret's mind was racing. She had never imagined anything like this. She had always been the quiet one, the one who stayed out of the spotlight. But here was this man, this powerful man, telling her that she had the potential to do something more. She felt a flicker of hope ignite inside her. I want to offer you a position, he continued, something that will allow you to use your talents in a way that you've never been able to before. I can help you, Miss Hayes, but the choice is yours. Margaret sat there for a moment, processing what he had just said. Could she really do this? Could she take this leap, trust this man who had already shown her more kindness than anyone else ever had? She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the decision pressing down on her. I don't know what to say, she whispered. You don't have to say anything yet, William replied, his tone gentle. Just know that the offer is on the table. Take your time. But I believe in you, Margaret. His words were like a lifeline, pulling her out of the depths of doubt. She had never been given an opportunity like this before. And for the first time in her life, she felt like maybe, just maybe, she could have something more. She stood up, her heart racing with a mixture of fear and excitement. I'll think about it, she said, her voice steady. But thank you. Thank you for believing in me. William smiled, his eyes softening. I'll be here whenever you're ready. As Margaret walked out of the office, she felt something inside her shift. She wasn't sure where this path would lead, but she knew one thing for sure. She wasn't going to let fear hold her back any longer. I've been thinking about it all night, Margaret thought to herself as she sat at the small kitchen table in her modest home. The soft hum of the refrigerator was the only sound in the quiet room. She could still feel the weight of William Castellano's words echoing in her mind. I believe in you. It wasn't just a job offer. It was a chance at something more. A chance at a life she had never even dared to dream of. She wasn't used to being told that she had potential, that she was capable of more than just cleaning houses. The idea seemed so foreign, so unreachable, and yet, she couldn't shake the thought of it. She had spent her entire life working for others, giving everything she had just to make ends meet. But now, with William's offer hanging in the air, she felt something stir inside her, a flicker of hope, a desire for change. She didn't know what this opportunity would look like, or how it would unfold, but she knew one thing. She couldn't let it slip away. Margaret had worked hard her entire life. She had sacrificed so much. And now, for the first time, someone was offering her a way out of the life she had known. But the question was, could she take it? Could she take a leap of faith into the unknown? She stood up from the table and walked to the window, looking out at the quiet street. The sun was beginning to set, casting a warm golden glow over the neighborhood. It was a peaceful scene, but it felt like everything was about to change. She had worked so hard to get to this point, but now that the door to something more was open, she wasn't sure if she was ready to walk through it. The fear of the unknown gripped her tightly. She had always played it safe, kept her head down, and never asked for more. But maybe it was time for that to change. Maybe it was time to take a risk, to trust that she deserved more. The phone rang, snapping her out of her thoughts. She picked it up, already knowing who it was. Margaret. William's voice was calm, yet there was a hint of urgency in his tone. I just wanted to check in with you. Have you thought about what we talked about? Margaret swallowed hard, her heart racing. She had known this call was coming. Yes, she replied, her voice steady despite the fluttering in her chest. I've thought about it a lot. And William's voice softened, as if he already knew the answer. I'm ready, Margaret said, her words coming out more confidently than she felt. I'm ready to take the opportunity. There was a brief silence on the other end of the line, and then William spoke again, his voice filled with approval. I knew you would be. I'll make the arrangements for you. You're going to do great things, Margaret. Margaret smiled to herself, feeling a rush of emotions wash over her. This was it. This was the moment that would change everything. She had made her choice. She had decided to take the leap. And no matter what came next, she knew she wouldn't look back. As she hung up the phone, she felt a new sense of purpose. For the first time in her life, she was taking control of her destiny. No longer just the maid, No longer just the woman who cleaned up after others. She was stepping into a new chapter of her life. A chapter where she was the one in charge. Margaret took a deep breath and walked toward the door, ready to face whatever came next. She didn't know where this path would lead, but she was no longer afraid to find out. I was never the type of person to ask for help. My whole life, I had been taught to rely on my own two hands, to take care of myself and never show weakness. But now, as I walked into that office building, I was realizing that things were different. Things were changing. For the first time, I was being offered something more, and it wasn't something I had to fight for alone. The city's skyline stretched in front of me as I walked into the elevator, heading to the top floor where William had promised we would discuss the opportunity he had mentioned. I could still hear his voice on the phone, calm and steady, telling me I was ready for something greater. But now, as I stood in front of the doors to his office, doubt crept in. Was I really ready? William's offer was a lifeline, one that could change everything. But stepping into a world so different from my own felt daunting. I had spent so many years working in the shadows, in the background, and suddenly I was being asked to step into the spotlight. The elevator doors opened, and I took a deep breath before walking into the reception area. The polished marble floors gleamed, and the modern decor reflected the kind of wealth I had only ever seen from a distance. I could feel my nerves start to rise again, but I took a deep breath and reminded myself that this was my chance. As I walked down the hallway, I noticed a few people glancing up at me, their expressions unreadable. I knew I didn't belong here, at least not in the way they expected. I wasn't like them. I had worked my whole life for the things I had, scraping by, doing everything I could to survive. But now, as I approached William's office, I felt a new sense of strength. I wasn't just here as a maid, as a woman from the background. I was here to take control of my future. I knocked on the door, and William's voice called out from inside. "Come in." I opened the door and walked inside. William was standing by the window, his back turned to me as he gazed out over the city. He was dressed in his usual sharp suit, looking every bit the powerful man he was. But when he turned around and saw me, his expression softened. "Margaret, I'm glad you came." He gestured for me to sit down. I took a seat across from him, trying to steady my breathing. "Thank you for meeting with me," I said, my voice trembling slightly. William smiled and nodded. "You're welcome. I know this is a big step, but I believe in you. You've shown strength in everything you've done, and that's why I'm offering you something that could change your life." I nodded, feeling the weight of his words sink in. This wasn't just a job offer. It was a chance to step into something new, something beyond what I had ever imagined. "What is it exactly?" I asked, my curiosity piqued. William leaned forward slightly, his gaze intense. "I want to offer you a position in my company," he said. "Not as a maid, not as someone on the outskirts, but as a part of my team, someone who will have a voice, someone who can make an impact." My heart skipped a beat. This was more than I had ever hoped for. "But why me?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. William's eyes softened. "Because you have something that not many people do. You have a quiet strength, a determination that I admire. And that's something I want on my team." I sat there, stunned. The offer was incredible, but it felt so far from my reality. Could I really do this? Could I step into this new world and be a part of something bigger? William seemed to sense my hesitation. "I know this isn't easy, Margaret. It's a big change, but I believe in your potential. I wouldn't offer this to just anyone." His words were like a lifeline, pulling me out of my uncertainty. Maybe I was ready after all. Maybe this was my chance to do something more, to be someone more. "I'll do it," I said, the words coming out before I even realized it. "I'll take the job." William smiled, his expression approving. "I knew you would. You're going to do great things, Margaret." And just like that, I knew that my life was about to change in ways I never thought possible. This was my moment, and I wasn't going to let it slip away. I walked out of the building that day with my head held higher than it had ever been. The air felt different, lighter, almost as if I was breathing in a new world. For years, I had been invisible, a worker in the shadows, doing everything I could to survive, but never asking for more. But now, thanks to William, things were changing. He had given me an opportunity to step into the light, to be seen, and to prove that I was more than just a maid. As I made my way to my modest apartment that evening, I couldn't help but think about the changes that lay ahead. The job he had offered wasn't just a position, it was a chance to reshape my life. The very idea that I could work in a professional setting, surrounded by people who saw potential in me, seemed like something out of a dream. I had always believed that I was destined for more, but never had the courage to act on it. William's belief in me had given me that courage. That night, as I sat at the small kitchen table in my apartment, I reflected on the path I had taken to get here. Growing up, I had always been taught that hard work would get me through life. And it had, in many ways. But the price had been steep. I had worked long hours for little pay, constantly putting others before myself. It had been exhausting, but it had also made me resilient. Now, it seemed like all those years of hard work had led me to this moment. But even as I felt a sense of accomplishment, there was still a lingering fear. Could I really do this? Could I thrive in a world so different from the one I had known? The thought of stepping into a corporate office, of interacting with people who were so different from the families I had worked for, made my stomach churn. But then I remembered William's words. He believed in me. That belief had given me the strength to take this step, and I wasn't going to let fear hold me back now. The next morning, I woke up early, dressed in the best clothes I had, and made my way to the office. As I approached the building, the nerves returned, but so did the sense of excitement. I had made a promise to myself, and now I was going to follow through. Inside, I was greeted by a receptionist who showed me to a small conference room. As I sat down and waited, I felt my heart race. I had no idea what to expect, but I was ready. After a few minutes, the door opened, and William walked in. He smiled when he saw me, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of pride swell inside me. "Margaret, it's good to see you again," he said. "Ready for your first day?" I nodded, trying to mask my nerves with a smile. "I think so." He sat down across from me, his expression serious yet encouraging. "I know this is a big change for you, but I'm confident you'll do well. I've seen the strength in you, and now it's time for you to show the world what you're capable of." His words were like a shot of adrenaline. I could feel the weight of the moment, the pressure of what was to come, but I wasn't afraid anymore. I was ready. As the day went on, I found myself settling into the rhythm of the office. It was different, more structured than anything I had ever experienced, but there was a certain excitement in it. I was learning, growing, and for the first time in my life, I felt like I belonged. By the time I left that evening, my confidence had grown. The fear was still there, but it was overshadowed by the sense of accomplishment that came with every task I completed. As I walked home that night, I thought about how far I had come. It wasn't just about the job. It was about the journey I had taken to get here, the courage to step out of my comfort zone, to trust that I could be more than I had ever been. I knew there would be challenges ahead, but I also knew that I was ready to face them. This was just the beginning, and I was determined to make the most of it. I woke up the next morning with a strange sense of calm, the kind that comes from knowing you're on the right path, even if the road ahead is uncertain. I had made it through my first day at the office, and I had survived. More than that, I had done well. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel invisible. I had proven to myself that I could handle this new life, that I wasn't just someone who cleaned houses. I was someone who could contribute, who had a voice. As I walked into the office that morning, I felt a little more confident. The nerves from the first day were still there, but they were now tempered by the knowledge that I was capable. I had done my best, and that was enough. The building felt different today, less intimidating somehow. I walked past the same polished floors and the same sleek modern decor, but today I didn't feel like an outsider. I felt like I belonged. As I entered the office, I saw the familiar faces of my coworkers, people who had started to become more than just strangers. I had learned their names, had exchanged pleasantries, and for the first time, I felt like I was part of the team. It was a subtle change, but it was a change nonetheless. I made my way to my desk, where a pile of paperwork was waiting for me. I wasn't exactly thrilled by the task, but I tackled it with determination, reminding myself that I was capable of more than just cleaning up after others. I had a purpose here. The hours flew by as I worked, my mind focused on the task at hand. But then, just as I was about to finish up for the day, William appeared in the doorway. He smiled when he saw me. "How's it going, Margaret?" he asked, his voice friendly but businesslike. "I'm getting the hang of it," I replied, trying to sound casual. "There's still a lot to learn, but I'm figuring it out." William nodded, his expression approving. "I knew you would. You're doing great." I felt a sense of pride swell inside me at his words. For the first time, someone was acknowledging my hard work. Not because I was simply doing my job, but because I was making an impact. "I've got a new project for you," he said, stepping into the room and handing me a folder. "This is something important. I want you to take the lead on it." My heart skipped a beat. "Lead? Me? I don't know if I'm ready for that," I stammered. "You're more than ready," William said, his voice firm. "You've got the skills, and you've earned my trust. Now it's time for you to prove it." I looked down at the folder in my hands, the weight of it suddenly feeling heavier than before. I had never been given an opportunity like this. But now that I had it, I realized that this was what I had been waiting for my entire life. The chance to step up, to show everyone, including myself, that I was more than just a maid. I could do this. I could lead. "Okay," I said, my voice steady. "I'll do it." William smiled, clearly pleased. "I knew you would. Let me know if you need anything. I'll be here to support you." As I left the office that evening, the folder still clutched tightly in my hand. I felt a rush of emotions: fear, excitement, doubt, and above all, pride. I had been given a chance, a real chance, to prove myself, and I wasn't going to waste it. As I walked home, I thought about what the future might hold. The road ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like I had a purpose. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was living. I was becoming the person I had always wanted to be, and I was going to keep pushing forward, no matter what. I walked into the office the next morning, feeling a mixture of nerves and excitement. Yesterday, I had been handed the chance of a lifetime, a chance to lead a project, to step into a role I had never imagined for myself. The weight of the folder in my hand was a reminder of that responsibility. But instead of fear, I felt a strange sense of determination. This was it. This was my moment to prove not just to William, but to myself, that I was more than the person I had been. As I sat down at my desk, I organized the documents in front of me, reviewing the details of the project William had given me. It was a challenge, an important one, he had said, but I was ready. I had always worked hard, always done my best, but now I was being asked to do more. I had to think strategically, make decisions, and lead others. The thought of managing people made my heart race, but I knew it was time to step up. Throughout the day, I found myself diving into the project, sorting through the tasks that needed to be done, making lists, setting goals. It was a lot, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was in control. I wasn't just following orders anymore. I was giving them, and it felt good. As the hours passed, I began to feel more comfortable in the role. I wasn't perfect. There were moments when I felt unsure, when I questioned if I was making the right decision. But with every step, I grew more confident. By the time the workday came to an end, I was exhausted, but in the best way possible. I had given my all, and I had accomplished more than I had thought possible. Walking home that night, I felt a sense of pride wash over me. The streets were quiet. The only sound was the steady beat of my footsteps. For once, I wasn't thinking about the past. I wasn't thinking about the woman who had cleaned for others, who had been invisible in a world that didn't care. I was thinking about the future. The future where I wasn't just a maid, but someone who had earned respect, someone who could lead. When I arrived home, I sat at the small kitchen table, looking at the project notes spread out before me. I realized something. The road ahead wasn't going to be easy, but it was mine to walk. No longer would I be defined by the roles others had placed on me. I was taking charge of my destiny. And for the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful. This was just the beginning. The future was uncertain, yes, but it was also full of possibilities. I wasn't sure where this path would lead, but I knew one thing for sure. I was ready to face whatever came next. The phone rang just as I was about to start dinner. I picked it up, and I knew it was William before I even said hello. "Margaret," he said, his voice warm as always. "How are things going with the project?" "It's going well," I replied, my voice steady. "I'm getting the hang of it." "I knew you would," he said with a chuckle. "I've been hearing good things from the team. You're making an impression." A smile tugged at the corner of my lips. "Thank you," I said, feeling a surge of pride. "I'm doing my best." "That's all I ever ask," William replied. "Keep up the good work, Margaret. You're going to do great things." His words felt like a promise, and in that moment, I knew I was on the right path. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was living, I was leading, and I was ready to make my mark. The phone call ended, and I sat there for a moment, letting his words sink in. I had come so far in such a short time, and the best part was, I knew this was only the beginning. As I prepared dinner that night, I reflected on how far I had come. The woman who had walked into William's office months ago, uncertain and unsure, was gone. In her place stood someone stronger, someone more confident, someone who was ready to take on the world. I woke up early the next morning, feeling the weight of the day ahead. It had been a few weeks since I started leading the project, and while the excitement of the opportunity hadn't worn off, the challenges were beginning to pile up. There were moments of doubt, moments where I questioned whether I was truly capable of handling the responsibilities that came with this new role. But when I looked back at how far I had come, how much I had already accomplished, I knew I couldn't turn back now. I dressed quickly, putting on the outfit that had become my office uniform, a reminder of how far I had come. The same streets I had walked down countless times now felt different, like they were part of a journey that was leading me somewhere greater. I walked into the office, greeted by familiar faces, and felt a sense of pride as I made my way to my desk. People were noticing my work, my contributions, and it felt good. I was no longer the quiet worker in the background. I had a voice, and it was being heard. The first few weeks of the project had been a whirlwind. Meetings, deadlines, and decisions that I had never imagined I would be responsible for. But I had stepped up, learned quickly, and proved that I was more than capable. Today, however, felt different. I had been asked to present the progress of the project to William and the team. My heart raced at the thought of standing in front of everyone, but I knew I had prepared. I knew the numbers, the updates, the next steps. I wasn't going to let fear hold me back. When the time came, I stood before the team, the weight of their attention on me. I spoke clearly, confidently, explaining the progress and the challenges we had faced, offering solutions, and leading the way forward. There were moments when my nerves almost got the best of me, but I remembered what William had said, "I believe in you." Those words echoed in my mind, and they gave me the strength to keep going. When I finished, there was a moment of silence, and then the room erupted into applause. I stood there, a little stunned, but a smile tugged at the corner of my lips. I had done it. I had not only survived this moment, but had thrived. William stood up from his seat, his expression one of approval. "Excellent work, Margaret," he said. "You've really stepped into this role. I'm proud of you." His words meant more to me than I could express. They weren't just words of encouragement. They were a recognition of everything I had worked for. It wasn't just about the project anymore. It was about me, about what I had become. After the meeting, I felt a rush of emotion. I had proven myself, not just to William or the team, but to myself. I wasn't the same person who had walked into this office weeks ago. I was stronger, more confident, and more capable than I had ever imagined. As I walked home that evening, the streets seemed brighter. The world seemed more open, full of possibilities I had never considered. The fear that once held me back was now a distant memory, replaced by a sense of purpose and determination. I knew there would be more challenges ahead. I knew I would continue to face moments of doubt, but I also knew that I was ready for whatever came next. I wasn't just a maid anymore. I was a leader, a woman who had earned her place in the world, and I wasn't going to let anything stand in my way.